Okay, so once again, we want to build an EER model involving these nodes, this scenario that you have. So you have a scenario, you have a domain related to advising of students at Murray State University. So that's your domain. So you want to create a domain model that stores information about students, advisors, and how they interact during advising sessions. Okay, so that's the case that you're dealing with. As we did before, we're going to use that free online tool called Draw.io, although you can use anything that you want. I mean, as long as you stick to the conventions that are in the textbook, use the same shapes, use the same cardinalities, you can use something else. For example, some people like to use Microsoft Visio. The reason I don't use Microsoft Visio because it doesn't come with Microsoft Office, and when I get it separately, I either need to pay money or I need to reinstall my Office because there's some kind of conflict between Visio version and the kind of Office that I have from Murray State University. So that's why I find it much easier to use that online tool, Draw.io. So I'm going to go to this tool here. So I'll enter Draw.io, also called Diagrams.net. That's another URL. So I'll go ahead and I create a new diagram, and it will be blank diagram. And now we'll save it somewhere here. EER advising. Okay. Now, most of the time, you will find items that you need for your ERD model here in the general collection of shapes that is always open by default. Okay. But you will also need some advanced, not advanced, but you will need to have some ER specific notations, such as the ones that you use for cardinalities. So for that, go to it's not a part, go to more shapes and then find ERD modeling somewhere here. Yeah, entity relations, it's here. So where is it? Yeah, here it is. So I already have it selected. So those are the things that we will need. Okay. Again, just before, there are some discrepancies, like this is called a list and it doesn't look exactly the same as what we have in the textbook, but let's stick to what the textbook shows in terms of shapes, right? So even if they're called differently in the Draw.io tool, we're going to use them because they look the same as the ones in the textbook. So here it's called an entity, it's called a list. So we're going to use a list for our entities, and we're going to use this shape for our associative entities. Okay. So let's go back to our example. Am I recording or not? Something's. Yeah, I'm recording, sorry. Yeah, so let's go back to our example here and let's go through those items one by one. So the first node the first item in your node says Murray State University wants to implement a system that will allow the university to keep track of students, their advisors, and advising sessions that students and advisors have. Okay, so based on this, what do we need to add to our EER model based on that first item? I think that first item in your notes kind of tells you what kind of entities that you need to have on your diagram, right? So which entities do you propose based on this item in your notes? So what do we need to create first? Yeah, first we need to create an entity to keep track of students. So let's name it with a singular noun, student. What else do we need? Yeah, we need an entity called advisor. So I just press here, I select Control-C, Control-V, and I just make a copy to make it quick. Advisor. Okay, so we need to keep track of students and their advisors. Okay, now let's go to the second item. It says for each student, MSU wants to store the following data: student ID, first name, last name, date of birth, age, GPA, academic standing, and major. So that tells us about what that tells us to add what to our model. So what are those things? Yeah, attributes of the student entity. Okay, so basically you were talking to advisors and they told you something like that. Well, when I talk to students, I need to know their name, I need to know their date of birth. So based on this, he created that list of attributes that are relevant for the domain, right? I'll see what I can copy. If not, I'll just do it one by one. No, it becomes okay. So let me enter it here one by one. So we're gonna have student ID, first name. So I just forgot where to click to add additional. It's not like that. Sorry, I forgot where to click. This interface always changes. Oh, here it is. So I need to click on the right to add additional attributes. Okay, so we have first name, last name. What else do we have here? Date of birth, age, GPA. Then we have academic standing, right? And what else do we have here? Major, right? Okay. Now, those are specific attributes. For example, academic standing is a calculated or derived attribute, right? Because it's derived from GPA. So that's why we put square brackets around it. And major is what kind of an attribute? It's not derived, right? It's an attribute that can assume multiple values for each student, right? So we're going to model it as a multi-value attribute using curly brackets. Okay, so let's leave it at that now. So we have our student entity model. So now let's add some information to our advisor entity based on this, right? For each academic advisor, MSU wants to store the following data: advisor ID, first name, last name, and college. So which attribute here can be a special attribute out of these four? What do you think? Okay, yeah, so you're right. We actually forgot about it. We need to go to text and we need to underline it for both entities, right? So we go to text options here and we find that underline option. Okay, so you're right. Now, I would say college can be a multi-value attribute because maybe some advisors will serve multiple colleges. It happens sometimes, right? So, but again, it depends on the domain. I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying it's possible. So let's model it like that. For example, we have an advisor like that. We have that cybersecurity program that some of you are part of. And gosh, I forgot the name of this lady who's an advisor. I talk to her like once a year, but she's advising for the program, and apparently she's in the College of Business, but she's advising both engineering students and business students, right? So she would be like somebody who belongs to more than one college as an advisor, okay? Okay, so now we have advisor and student entities. Now, let's think about cardinalities. One student can be advised at the minimum by how many advisors at the minimum? Stan, what do you think? Yeah, it depends on the domain. Maybe if it's like a new student, maybe 0, but let's assume at Murray State, once you accept it as a student, your advisor is specified, right? So minimum 1, and maximum, I guess what I'm trying to say, like, you know, if they come, a student can be associated with one or many advisors, right? So he or she can be advised many times. It depends how it works. Maybe at Murray State it's 1, right? Okay, yeah. So I see what the problem is. So here we are talking about advisor assignment, right? If it's an advisor assignment, then one student is assigned to exactly one advisor. That's how it works at Murray State, right? If we're going this way, then one advisor can advise one or many students. So it's one-to-many relationship, which is not a problem. But remember, here we have this information. MSU wants to keep track of each advising sessions. right? Of each advising session. So not assignment, but advising session. So one student can have many advising sessions with an advisor, right? And one advisor can have many advising sessions involving many students. So it's a many-to-many relationship. If we try to model the advising relationships between students and advisors, right? So that kind of tells us that we need to have an associative entity called advising, right? So it's that session. So whenever a student is advised by his or her advisor, whether it's one or multiple, we create a record here in that line item associative entity table. And we need to have the following elements in that advising entity or attributes. So we need to introduce advising ID, right? And then date and time of the visit, as well as notes, right? So let's add those items quickly here. So it will be advising ID, and that will be our identifier. Then we're going to have, let's say, advising date, advising time, and then notes. For some reason it doesn't let you underline it. Yeah, for some reason it doesn't allow you to format it separately, so let's just do it like this. Maybe we'll find a better way, but what I will do for now, I'll just create a separate, I'll go to text, and I'll create advising ID. Maybe you need to use a different shape. I just found like the first shape that looks similar to an associative entity. Maybe it's something else that will work for you. So I'll do it like this. Maybe it's not the best way. So I did it like that. So, so now you have student advisor link through advising. So each advising session is for how many students at the minimum? So each advising session is for one student, right? And then each student can be advised 0 many times. So we have 1 here and 0 many here. So we'll find, when you go to entity relationship tab, you need to find a cardinality line that looks similar, right? So each advising is for exactly 1 student. Okay? And then a student can be advised 0 many times. He or she can participate in 0 or many advising session. And then 1 advising session is administered by how many advisors at the minimum? Minimum 1 and maximum, I think at most universities maximum is also 1. You don't have multiple advisors coming to advise you, right? So it's 1, and 1 advisor can participate in 0 or many advising sessions, right? If it's a new advisor, let's say he or she hasn't advised anybody, right? So we have the same kind of cardinality line going this way. So each advising session is for exactly 1 advisor. And I will go ahead and I will straighten these lines. Yeah, I'm a bit puzzled. Maybe there's something I don't know about the shape that it doesn't allow you to underline. I'm not sure what the purpose is, why it's like that. Maybe you'll figure out. If not, use the same shape just maybe like make a note that this is like associative entity or something like that. Or maybe it's not even necessary because I'll see from the diagram that you're linking these two entities together. So I'm not sure why this underlying is an issue here. Well, anyways, that looks approximately similar to what we have in our textbook in terms of the conventions and shapes, right? And then as usual, what you can do, you can go ahead and export as, export as a graphics file and then insert it into your Word document, okay? So this is how you create ERD diagrams using Draw.